Service TV.
Hello everybody, my name is Jason Piercey and this is Out of the Fog. Last time I was in this chair, I had Mayor Dave Aker of Mount Pearl over in that couch, which you'll see momentarily. And at the end of that show, we had spoken a lot about crime. And I said, I'm gonna do my best to get somebody from the RNC in to talk about that. Tonight is that night. So, after a quick break, come back, I will be here with Constable James Cadigan, who is the Media Relations and Communications Officer with the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, and we'll talk all about all of that stuff that we spoke to Mayor Dave about and a whole lot more, right after this. And welcome back to Out of the Fog. Let me introduce to you a face that is seen on local television far more often than mine over the last 6 years or so, Constable James Cadigan. Hello, sir. Thank you for coming out.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I know that you probably don't have a lot to be at.
Oh.
What? No. So, Constable Cadigan, you're in Media Relations, Public Communication for the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary.
That's correct, yeah.
So, being a police officer, I'm going to say cop because it comes out of my mouth. Is that disrespectful to say cop?
No, I mean, it's whatever, everybody's choice.
Yeah, but it doesn't offend you?
No, I mean,
no? Okay. All right. So, because I'm a realtor and people call me things that I don't like sometimes. I'm way worse than you.
You gotta have a thick skin sometimes.
Exactly, yeah. So, I imagine being a cop is a really hard job just because of the risk involved and the difficulty, and there's so much importance to what you're doing, and you're dealing with people who are unkind, unfriendly, and dangerous, and you're dealing with the sweetest of people who are probably very troubled and heartbroken at any given moment.
Yep.
On top of that, you're doing it live in front of a camera to an entire province, trying to explain to them what's going on, making them feel like everything is going to be okay, provided that it is, and it almost always is, I guess, and still come off handsome and charming, which you're doing a pretty good job of, so congrats on that. It can't be an easy job, man.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point there. I mean, generally when someone's calling the police, it's not their best day.
No.
It's not a good situation, they need help. And that's why it's so incumbent upon police officers, across the country, but certainly here with the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, to have that level of compassion, awareness, patience, and communication skills. That's where it all starts. That's how you build that relationship and understand, what someone's going through. And then to begin to collect information that in a case where a criminal event has occurred, that you can lawfully collect information and launch an investigation. That, in a case where charges are laid, we're able to present our case to court in an admissible manner.
So as you're explaining this, you're using certain words that I imagine are specifically used in your sentence, and they're chosen carefully because there's criminal event, and then there's collecting information it's lawfully collected and it's admissible, and then so the point of all of that is what constitutes a criminal event? Is me driving too fast to get to the studio because Officer Cadigan is here and I'm in a hurry? Is that a criminal event?
So I'll start by saying that a police officer's authority is all bound by legislation, whether it be the Criminal Code, the Highway Traffic Act, for example, and so on. There's provincial legislation that the officers abide by, essentially. And your driving piece, that's the Highway Traffic Act. So what sections of that act are we enforcing as in the interest of safety? And if somebody's speeding, well, yeah, that's a piece that there's a section in the code or the Traffic Act that we will apply to that type of behavior. And, so that's a systematic way that police officers would think. And, we're trained to use that understanding of our authority while also engaging our own personal skills in some cases, but your instincts and communication, as I've said, is a big piece of that.
So when we see something, I have so many thoughts going in my head right now. It's like I'm on set for all of my favorite procedural crime dramas that I've ever watched.
This is your chance.
And this is my chance. I'm in between takes, I'm allowed to say. Yeah. So did this intentionally happen here because he unlawfully collected this information? So now later that sets up the plot so that the guy can get off on a technicality. Is that sort of the kind of stuff that happens? Is that why the procedure and that everything that you have to do is so structured under legislation? Because if you don't stay in those boxes, that's how people get off on a technicality?
So again, another great point in that, we are guided by legislation, but then there's also case law that guides us. For example, if something makes its way to court and a decision is made by the court as to how a police officer should engage in investigation to collect information appropriately, then we are bound by that piece of information, that case law. And so a good example of that would be, impaired driving, for example. There is a specific pathway that an officer would take to ensure that the information is collected appropriately and lawfully. And in terms of the technicality piece and whatnot, consistency is key for police officers, good information collection, accuracy. And consistency is difficult in the world of policing in a sense that there's no two cases that are
the same thing doesn't happen exactly the same.
But if you're collecting information consistently and applying it to your day-to-day in a consistent manner, and that's a piece that can be a piece of integrity that
Yeah, so if they look back at Officer Piercey's notes, and then every day I file everything the same way, and it's
exactly
predictable.
Right.
He's been doing it exactly like this for 15 years.
That's right.
So the fact that he did it like this today is at least to some degree, we can place merit on it. It's reliable.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the perfect word. It's reliable, it's consistent, and it's, again, I'll go back to my word of lawful.
Yeah,
so, so the time comes when you're looking back through a report submitted by an officer of an event that has occurred, and it's the information's all collected chronologically and whatnot, and you can understand this is consistently gathered, and it's understandable not just to the other officers, but if this goes to court, it's understandable to the lawyers, the court, and the public.
So let's talk about bad guys, okay?
Yeah, let's go.
let's talk about crime. In my mind, and I'd like you to sort of correct me if there's anything wrong about this. In my mind, when I try and understand the state of crime in our local community, I sort of have it segmented. There's the larger, more organized, heavily funded, structural, sort of industrial kind of crime, the stuff that you would see in movies as organized crime or the mafia or the big biker clubs and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then you've got the small guys who they're to some degree are probably a little more circumstantial with their life, and this is what they're working on to try. Because I generally think most of us do the best we can with what we have. We just make bad decisions sometimes. So to me, you've got the big guys and the little guys, sort of. Is there truth to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very situational. I mean, it could be social impacts, but again, like you said, in terms of the crime networks, the organized crime, these are groups that have no regard for public safety. Their activity is based solely on profit and being in control, essentially, and they will do whatever it takes to maintain that level of control. And that's where you see, we brought in recently, just last year, the Weapons and Drug Enforcement Unit, which are mandated to identify and be proactive in removing firearms and drug trafficking operations prior to any potential violent events. So they work based on information from the community, other pieces of intelligence, and they monitor activity in our community to look to detect any of that activity, certainly firearms, drug trafficking, any other level of crime network.
Law has to be tough. Enforcing the law has to be tough because like we're talking about proactive things there, right? So the way it all plays out is somebody commits some sort of criminal act, and then our legislation dictates if they are guilty and found guilty, what type of sentence they have based on the severity of the act.
That's right.
And that's so a judge doesn't just say, I hate this guy, 20 years. It's
No,
just
that's right.
like, it's structured.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's so difficult. If we're trying to curb things, we're punishing people for acts that are, proactive. So like,
Yep.
we don't want anybody to get violently offended. We don't want anybody to get shot and murdered.
Yep.
So let's get somebody with an intent to traffic firearms.
Yep.
And if they're found guilty of that, you save a life.
Yep.
But the sentencing for that has to be lesser than taking
violence.
somebody's life. So
Yep.
it's a really, really weird.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You make a great point, and the reality is in these crime network, organized crime scenarios, that if we're removing firearms, illicit drugs, cash from a particular body or a crime network, well, they are a piece of that web, I would say, and somewhere above them there is a larger operator.
Yeah.
And so they are now answerable, of course, to that group. So in reality, what you see there is, they're out and dismantled, and that group is then, forced to try to recover that loss and whatnot. So that's why it's so important that, we continue proactively assessing each investigation. Once we dismantle one group, we must then determine where the next piece is, and that's why it's a constantly moving process. This Weapons and Drug Enforcement Unit are consistently engaged in the community and looking to identify those who are operating in those types of networks. And just recently we did do a seizure under judicial authorization over on Salisbury Street in St. John's, and did seize firearms, illicit drugs, made 3 arrests, and that's a seizure that occurred in a residential area of St. John's. So that's dropped right down.
Like, how long does that kind of a seizure? Like, how long are you investigating that?
It depends on the availability
months,
of
years.
information.
Like, you could be working on that a long time, hey?
Yeah, it really varies. If there's a lot of covert work required, then that's a piece. But if information is being provided to investigators that allows us to go to the court and say we have reliable evidence that this activity is ongoing, and we feel that there's further evidence available at a property, that it's all a lawful process. It's about having the information to support the reasonable grounds to make an action, and again, it's systematic. It's all written in law as to how we must go about this.
Yeah, because if you go too early and you think you have enough info, right? And then you go too early and an arrest is made or whatever, and then you get to the prosecuting side of things, which just so that the public knows, like, police officers don't have anything to do with prosecution. They gather information, investigate, arrest, lay charges, and then the Crown, the government, Crown attorneys, decide how to prosecute. And if they can't win in that court case because you guys moved too fast, or because some of the information you got was less reliable than you thought, or the judge who says, here's your warrant, or however that works, was having that kind of a day, then it's sort of all for naught, because it just goes away.
That's a great point in that, the information we provide in a situation where we've laid a charge, that means we had reasonable and probable grounds to believe an offense occurred. And we submit our information to the court, and from that point it is a prosecution.
We're going to take a quick break. Thank you very much. I have so many ideas, so many things I want to talk about. We'll be right back after this. welcome back to Out of the Fog, where yours truly is interrogating Officer Cadigan.
Of course.
All right, everything's okay? You're not sweating too much?
Oh, we're doing all right. You know, you
Yeah.
gotta turn that light down a little bit, though.
Yeah, a little bit. Just like, it brings to mind that Seinfeld episode to me where Newman is trying to get Jerry to answer, but Newman's got the light on himself. I'm like, this isn't working.
Mail fraud.
So we were talking about the more organized crime for a bit, and if we have time, I'd like to get back to it. But the other side of it that we spoke about is how you do have, I don't know what you want to say, like your everyday criminal kind of, or like the small guy sort of thing. And specifically, I wanted to bring it up because at the end of probably the last episode that I had here, I was talking to Mayor Dave Aker of Mount Pearl, and it came up in that conversation that they had an uptick in criminal activity from young offenders that involved elderly members of the community, and it caused a bit of an uproar, rightfully so, to a degree. And I remember saying in that episode, like, maybe in the new year or maybe sometime soon, we can bring somebody in to talk about it. So can we talk a little bit about, because I know you can't speak about things that are still happening, kind of, because, I mean, it doesn't help your investigation, kind of.
So in this situation, there was, of course, multiple events that occurred in Mount Pearl late in 2024. Charges have been laid in connection with those events. And those investigations really highlighted the value of community collaboration, reporting suspicious activity, providing information to the RNC, really. Because once these investigations launched, it really was evident that the community will not stand for that behavior. They said, enough of this, we're going to support this investigation, and we were very quickly able to identify the individuals and, of course, all youth, and lay charges. And, I really can't say enough about that. Reporting of suspicious activity is valuable and vital to our ability to respond. And again, you talk about the kind of what is looked at as lower level crime, theft, and so on. But at the end of the day, the reporting of suspicious activity, not only allows us to progress our investigations, but it often allows us to identify these activities before they really escalate.
Yeah, because I imagine in a lot of ways similar to drug use or addictions, smaller criminal activity probably grows in its magnitude over time as the person either becomes more desperate for whatever they're seeking through their crime, or their life gets worse, or so curbing it early with the sense of rehabilitation, as opposed to, like, if we go back to the conversation we had before, like stopping the I don't know, the R-15 before it gets here prevents murder. Similarly, like, cut it off at the youth when it's petty theft or vandalism before it becomes, something else.
Exactly. I mean, if you see something suspicious in your community, you can do something right then and there. You can call the RNC or your local police service and report the information. At the very worst, it provides us with a little bit of an antenna up, say, let's drive by and check it out. But it could be a piece of a puzzle. It could be a part of a timeline of events of an investigation that we're already engaged in. For example, in this occasion in Mount Pearl, the event occurred in the area of Roosevelt Avenue, but the timeline started much earlier than that. And the information we received for the events previous to and following the actual violent act allowed us to piece together the overall picture of what occurred and to identify the individuals involved.
So there was more to that thing and those persons involved than the report of that violent act itself?
Yeah, so the report received by our members, we respond, we launch an investigation, and from there, it's about piecing together, again, the puzzle, the bigger picture as to how this came to be, what we can learn about it, and how to identify the suspects and where they came from.
So how does somebody go about reporting something? Because I can remember, I can remember like just going to hockey and coming out and the windows beat out of your car.
Right.
And you're like, oh, again, because like that, for a time there, had been a regular occurrence. I haven't skated in over 3 years, so I don't know if it's a problem anymore or not. But the process of reporting can be sort of arduous and frustrating.
Yeah.
Like especially if I wasn't, particularly good on my cell phone,
right,
with filling out forms online and stuff.
Right.
So what's the easiest way for people to report something that they see if they're trying to be proactive and protect their community?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways you can go about it. One, of course, you call the RNC directly, 729-8000. Across the island, there are other numbers to contact the RNC. If a crime is in progress, 911. So it's a crime in progress scenario, and that it may be something as simple as maybe a theft has just occurred. But if you believe that is the case, you can contact 911 because that's an emergent response. And of course, the online reporting is available as well through rnc.gov.nl.ca. And that would be the form that you would fill out online that would provide information directly to the police service.
It occurs to me that because the RNC has grown over the last number of years, you've brought in all of these different, I don't know if divisions is the right word, and like it's become, not to offend anybody who's been with the RNC for a long time, but I feel like the public image of the constabulary is now one of a much more legitimized and larger police force than somebody would have remembered in the early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, the police service has evolved with what we're seeing in the community, whether it be crime, the needs of the community in general. For example, we now have a mobile crisis response team operating out of RNC headquarters, which involves a mental health clinician and a police officer trained in crisis intervention who will respond to wellness checks and other mental health crisis.
Wow.
So that's a piece that has part of the evolution. Of course, there's specialized units, whether it be forensic related, there's new equipment. I mentioned the weapons and drug enforcement unit, and that goes right through the police service in terms of professionalism and the needs of the community. And likewise, we just expanded on the West Coast in the Corner Brook area as far as Pasadena and through the Humber Valley and out through the Bay of Islands, and Massey Drive. So that's a larger community there that we've taken on, and we're actively recruiting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that must require persons.
Yeah, so just this year we took on new officers who went through the training program at the Atlantic Police Academy in Prince Edward Island, and we'll be sending 2 classes of cadets to that program this year in 2025. Who will be RNC members by this time next year now. So, and again, the following year we are looking to recruit. So, if it's somebody who's interested in this line of work or, has questions even about what to expect, you can contact us directly and
How
inquire.
old does one have to be an RNC officer?
You have to be at least 19
to do the training or to be instated?
To be a police officer, yeah.
Okay.
In Canada. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
I think I'm too old now.
Yeah. Never too late.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I'm not as fast as I used to be. So, there's so much about just conversation so can we just talk like State of the Union?
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about social media, and I'd like to talk about the positive and negative effects that it has, because I imagine every investigation you do involves looking through people's socials.
Yeah, so social media is present every day in our activity. I would say each day we're getting screenshots of evidence and information and communications that occur. We saw a lot of that present in a lot of investigations involving youth with apps such as Snapchat and other related applications that our youth are engaged in. And that's why we really want to stress to the community, and certainly parents, guardians, to speak to your kids. It should never be a veil of secrecy over the activity on your youth cell phones, kids' cell phones. Be open, know the passwords, monitor the activity. These are devices that can very negatively impact a child's life, and not just at that time, but very far into the future. So it's important they understand the risks, and the reality is that your child could be sitting in your living room on their device and communicating with somebody who is looking to be predatory. And it's important that you understand who is on the contact list of these applications, and have an open dialogue with your child.
Yeah, and the secrecy, I can picture she doesn't have a cell phone, but she has a tablet that's Wi-Fi enabled, but not data. But she has restricted time access and apps that she can and can't use. But our rule is basically like, hey, I trust you. You can use this. But the thing is, I'm allowed to look at it whenever I want.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want, but I'm allowed to look whenever I want.
Yeah. So
and then it's almost like, okay, so let's just not, let's just be cool about what's there. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why, like, we just always want to stress the importance of having that open dialogue with youth about these devices. You know, it's just like learning to drive a car. You need to learn to use these devices because they have significant risk. Yeah.
So when we're nearly out of time, but when people are looking for updates on things that they've seen, like, because I live in Mount Pearl. Yep. And I walk the trails, and I go to the dog park, and I'm a part of the community. Right. And if you go to these like neighborhood community groups on Facebook, it's just, guys, it's not that bad. Like,
you had to be certainly cautious about taking in information on social media, Facebook, other apps, because you know, anybody has a voice, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have any checks or balances, and it's important to ensure that if you're getting information, it can be right from the source. And the RNC, we are active on social media, but we do release public information based on events that are occurring in our community. If it's a public safety event, we will be very active and make the community aware using all methods of communication, whether it be social media, media outlets, and so on. And you know, we really work together with the community on that. Municipalities and cities across the province are engaged with the RNC to ensure that we're able to work together to protect our community.
Wonderful. Constable Cadigan, thank you very much for taking your time. And to all of the criminals out there, you better put away your bad guy things, because I'm letting him leave now. So he's going to go back to work. Thank you very much, sir. Greatly appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
Your opinion matters, and we want to hear from you. Get in touch with us using our viewer feedback line, your direct connection to shaping the shows you love. It's easy. Just grab your phone, scan the QR code on your screen, and take our quick survey. Share your thoughts, and let's make your viewing experience even better.
And welcome back. Okay, Constable Cadigan, thank you for your time. A lot of valuable information there. I think if people knew more about how the process worked, it would help them feel better about how things are going in the community. But stay involved, because it matters. And if you're ever wondering why the RNC doesn't give you more information, it's because they can't without messing up the search. So they have it. You will get it as soon as it'll keep you safer. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
We want to hear from you. Provide feedback on this show or find out how you can get involved. Call, email us, or scan the QR code to take our quick survey.
Where will you win?
The opening tip. We're underway. Here is Prince. What a vicious slap! Canada, the NBA title is yours.
As we welcome a new era, where will you hear the story?
Right to the rim with a slam dunk.
Catch the highlights. Dive into takes. Where will you be when? Right here. Raptors basketball. Nothing but Sportsnet.
I was born and raised in Musqueam First Nation territory by my mother, who spoke Hunkaminam to me. As a child, I ceased using my mother tongue, as to use any language other than English was considered not being Canadian, so I was told. The old people came to me in a dream and reminded me of who I am and where I come from. I have reawakened. My roots are strong, and I'm no longer a silent speaker. My language tells me where I'm from. It defines me and guides me to teach others to learn and understand our culture and traditions. A gift for those in the present and the unborn generations. What was lost is found. What was asleep has awakened. My blood is here, and I am complete. I have returned home.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride